I'm Rory Smith, a broadcaster and interviewer. Everyone has a story of challenges and triumphs throughout life, and there's lessons to be learnt from everyone's experience. That is why I'm asking each person I meet, what's your story? I want to introduce you to Asia. Now, she's 21 years old. She works full-time for a logistics company. She is setting up her own motivational speaking business. She is an ambassador for the Prince's Trust, and she won an award at the Prince's Trust Awards in March 2020. All of this by the time she's just 21 years old, which is pretty remarkable. However, if we rewind a few years back, she was actually homeless. She was drinking litres of vodka a day. She was doing hard drugs. This is Asia's story. Take me back then, right to the start, where it all began. Tell me about your childhood. Was it a happy one?
Early years of my childhood.
Yeah, the very early years. Let's say up until 10 years old.
Okay, it was bro. My family were we weren't rich, but well off. Like, we were very fortunate to have a dad. We all got like a lot of presents on Christmas. We were all very close. I come from, my dad's Pakistani and my mum is British, so English, and our families. But it was nice to have that kind of multicultural background, because you'd learn like a different language when you go to my dad's like mum's house, and then like some of our family were in Australia as well, so it was really nice to have such a mixed background.
And did you have siblings?
Yeah, so I'm one of 12. We're not all full. I have 4 brothers and sisters. I have 5 of them. There's 5 of us, but before my mum and dad got together, they had a kid with a previous partner, and then when they split up, my mum had 2 more kids, and then my dad, when he got married, she already had 3 children, so they're like stepbrothers and sisters.
Were you close to them?
Yeah, really close. We're really like close family. My sister's 11 and a half months younger than me, so we were in the same year, so we were quite close, and my other little sister like 2 years younger, so it was just a bit crazy with like 3 girls who were really close in age.
Yeah, I bet. Things changed then in your childhood. This was when your parents split up. How old were you then?
I was 11.
You're 11. And what do you remember from that time?
I remember my mum previously having a conversation with me about how I would feel if my mum and dad split up, and I think from a very young age I was quite grown up, I guess, and I always said that as long as everyone's happy, then it's not a problem. As long as we're all still close like we were before, it's fine. But then like after that, it didn't go great after when they split.
Right. Do you remember whenever they split up? Do you remember the day? Do you remember the week? Do you remember how you felt?
Well, it was our first time in year 7, so I remember it was like the first or second week of year 7. So it was a pretty big bombshell to drop when you first like go into high school, and but I think I'm quite older, that like a little bit wiser than my years, so I kind of understood. But me and my sister, who is 11 and a half months younger, we decided to move in with our dad, because we felt bad, because you're in to kind of stay with your mom. But then I thought, like, I was close with my dad at the time, and I thought I don't want to leave him without any kids, and he'd be lonely. So I ended up with them.
And how long did you live with him for?
I think just shy of like 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, it was a couple of months we stayed at our grandma's house first, because my dad didn't get a house until, he had to get everything sorted first. But then he ended up moving into his own house, and me and my sister obviously moved in with him, and then it just kind of spiraled from there, I guess.
Right. What was the 2 years living with him like?
Hell.
Was it? Why?
Terrible. I guess so are we allowed to talk about like culture and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Okay. Basically he obviously he's Pakistani, my mum's English, and when we were being brought up from when we were born to 11, we were told like you can be whoever you want to be. There was no religion forced on us. We kind of went to mosque very briefly, just to learn a bit of language, so we could talk to like my grandparents because they weren't very fluent with English, so it was nice to communicate with them. But after a few times of going, we just stopped going. So there wasn't a lot of pressure to be to learn or practice a religion. When we moved in with my dad, he kind of just forced the Islamic religion on us and said, "You've always been Muslim. Like don't lie." Like, because I kept trying to communicate to my Pakistani side of the family that it wasn't always like this. That we've eaten unhalal meat. Like, obviously there's things that are classed as haram that have been done within our family. We've never been brought up this way, but obviously no one believed me at this point. And my dad just became very abusive, like mentally. Looking at all of my family, I'm kind of like the black sheep of the family.
Why do you think that?
I'm very outspoken. If I know that something isn't right, I will voice it, not in like a disrespectful way, but I will tell the truth. I've never liked to. My siblings have always kind of, and a lot of my family have put a persona so that the Asian family will just kind of accept them. And I've just always had the same sort of thought that why do I have to pretend to be something I'm not for my family to accept me, especially when I'm mixed race, if you know what I mean.
Did that get you in trouble with your dad, being outspoken?
Definitely. I think in his mind it was kind of like children are there to be seen and not heard, and it was like I was never allowed an opinion ever, and when I voiced that opinion, I just got into trouble. So I got into trouble for like hugging boys at the park, and it was very, very strict. So
And did this change your personality in a way? Did you become more outspoken, or did you retract into yourself?
I think I became very angry because there was memories that I had from a very young age of like me and my family going on holiday and my dad drinking and smoking and all of that. And then when I would say it, my dad would be like, "That didn't happen. You're crazy." So it made me kind of think that my childhood, like I was dreaming, if you know what I mean.
Right.
It made me feel like I was crazy a lot of the time, and it just made me very angry. And I feel like at school I just went off the rails, just started smoking, getting in with the wrong crowd, and just thought, well, if people are going to paint this picture of me as being a liar and being calm, then I may as well like be it.
But also, was it some kind of escape for you as well, that you could have fun with that crowd and escape from home?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was weird because from a young age I've always known that I'm a lot different from other people, from like most of my family. So it was nice to kind of hang around with people that had a lot of different opinions, and people didn't listen to them either, and their parents, they had problems with their parents. So it was kind of like we all had similarities. So that's why we hung around together.
Yeah. And you said you lived with him for about 2 years then. So what happened after that?
So there was a court order in place. So every weekend, my mum had 2 children and my dad had 2 children living with them. So there was me and Alia and Amina and Amia living with my mum. So we would swap every weekend. We could see our parents obviously in the weekend. And every weekend I'd be coming to my mum's and I'd be crying like, he's horrible to me, like, and I'd constantly be asking my sister like, tell her what happened, but I think she just kind of I don't know, I think she was scared to talk about it.
How did your mum respond to that when you told her those things?
She believed me straight away. She believed me because I wouldn't have reacted, because I was crying every single day, like on the phone or coming up to her, and I was begging her like, "Can I move in with you? I just want to come and stay with you?" And after a while, then she just said, "Yeah, like we're gonna do it." And my little brother went to live with my dad, and I went to live with my mum.
Were you relieved to be living with your mum?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I as soon as I moved in with my mum, I realised that I had a lot of mental health issues that I needed to work through.
Okay.
So I definitely realised that.
And what sort of mental health issues were they?
At the point, at that time, I didn't know, but obviously thinking back to now, it was definitely like depression. Having like I guess I was stuck with a lot of trauma that I needed to work through because I was having like nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like sleeping properly. I'd constantly be writing like depressing songs because I was very like I've always loved music since I was little, and I'd always write like really depressing like rubbish songs, and I like I don't know, it was just an overwhelming feeling of sadness. It was like I was just sad, listening to sad songs, never happy songs, and all.
Yeah. And your mental health, how did you deal with that at that time?
I feel like the first year I lived with my mum, I was doing okay. Like it wasn't like it was horrendous. Like we were getting on, it was fine. We had our odd arguments. Like I don't know what teenager a mum doesn't. But then when my mum ended up moving back into town, moved into like a 2-bed house. We had 6 people living in there, so we had 2 little brothers and sisters, and they were like babies, and me and my little sister and my stepdad as well. So it's a 2-bedroom house with 6 people. It's like a fishbowl. It at this point it was like I recognised that I had a lot of mental health issues I needed to work through, and I was asking my mum, I need to seek help outside of school because my school counsellor can't really do a lot. I went to one appointment, and it was like I didn't get a chance to speak to the counsellor on my own. It was me and my mum, so I couldn't tell her to exactly what I was thinking or feeling because I felt like there was I don't know, I felt embarrassed to talk about it.
And if you had the chance now, what would those feelings be that you would have told her?
That I was getting towards being suicidal, that I was having suicidal thoughts, that I couldn't be bothered, like I was crying all the time and I couldn't be bothered with life. I couldn't be bothered to breathe. Like it felt like it's a weird feeling to explain, but it just felt like my chest was heavy all the time, and I had no way of like escaping it or like relieving it in a way.
What did she do to try to help?
I think she thought in her mind, telling me that I do believe in like you know, when people say like, oh, you're strong, you can do this, you can do that, but at the same time I think when you're struggling with a mental health illness, you know when you need to go into depth with it and unravel what's gone on to understand it. And that's what I couldn't get across to her, because at this point she didn't believe that mental health issues were real. She didn't, but she thought stress was a choice. She didn't believe in depression. When I said to her, I think I have depression, I need to deal with it, and she just did not believe me. She didn't believe that it was real, and it was really hard to get that across to someone who doesn't believe in it. When you'll be fine, you're stressing yourself out. Stress is a choice. Like just get yourself out of it, and it's like it's not that easy.
Did you have anyone to talk to?
I had a school counsellor at school, but she could only advise on things, and she wasn't allowed to go. She was constantly trying to get me help outside of school, but then you know my mum. It's ultimately I was under 18, so it was my mum's ruling. It was either I couldn't take myself there physically on my own, if you know what I mean.
You were homeless at 16, is that right?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So at this point, obviously, I kept begging my mum to see someone outside of school because I needed to work through my issues. I started self-harming. Just at this point, I didn't understand what was going on, but obviously now looking back at it, I do understand why I was acting that way. But I was always angry. I was so aggressive. I would literally like stomp up the stairs at the house to wake the kids up, just to like get a reaction out of my mum. And I know it sounds childish, but I don't know. It was like I was just trying to get her attention, and the way it was kind of like, "Can you hear me?" And I just remember it was just constant arguments every single day, and it built up and built up and built up, so much tension. And one day, me and my sister argued in the morning, and I literally just ran out of the house and just went to school really early. Like I just went to the bus stop, and I remember getting to school. And I said to my school counsellor, I'm going to go home tonight, grab a pair of clothes and go to my friend's house, which was 3 doors down from my mum's house. And say, I need a night away, and I'm going to come back in the morning, on Saturday morning, so we can sit and talk things out, trying to be the adult of the situation. I needed time to think, because I literally felt like I was crazy. I was getting, it was kind of scary, the amount of anger I had inside of me, and I didn't understand where it was coming from. I just needed space. I really needed space. And when I got back home to come and grab some clothes, all of my stuff was in bin bags in the garden. So.
Wow. And did you get into the house that day?
No, I was screaming, banging on the doors. I was crying. I just couldn't, like, I didn't know what to do, because at that point I felt like my whole life was just like falling apart.
Was your mum inside the house?
Yeah, they shut basically when you go to the back garden, there's a gate and a garden, and then you've got 2 patio doors which lead into the kitchen, and from the kitchen there's a door to get into the living room, and they were all sat in the living room. My little sister was packed my belongings, put them in the garden, and then mum turned around and said, like, shut the door. So they shut the kitchen door, so I couldn't see anything but the empty kitchen, and that was it.
What were you feeling?
I just wanted to kill myself at that exact point. It's quite upsetting thinking back to it, because I just thought I'd lost everything. I thought I lost my family. It's hard to explain. It's really, really hard to explain. It's just like overwhelming sadness, really.
But that very first night, do you remember what you felt that first night being homeless?
I just it's like, you know, when people say, oh, it's freezing, like, you do not feel like the cold until you have slept like outside in like below, like in minus like 1-2 degrees. It is horrible. It feels like you can literally feel cold in your bones. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was horrible, scary. I remember, like, one of the times that I slept in the rugby pitches at 16. Yeah, bearing in mind I'd only just turned 16 as well, because my birthday was in September, and my mum kicked me out just a few days after. And seeing, like, there was people like injecting heroin, like smoking legal highs, like seeing all of that at 16, when at this point I'd only had, like, you know, I was only really introduced to cigarettes and vodka, and at this it was just mad. It was crazy. And I started like getting into smoking legal highs, and then smoking marijuana, and then like doing cocaine, and it just became like a snowball effect.
And what was your drinking habits at this time?
At this point, it was like any drink I could get my hands on, I'd drink all of it. Like, I was literally just drinking to forget everything at that point.
What were you drinking?
Like vodka, like horrible cheap cider, like Frosty Jacks.
Were you drinking every day?
Not, I wouldn't say every single day, but it was like every other day.
And how much were you drinking?
If it was a whole bottle, it would be a whole bottle. It wasn't really measurements. It was like, if whatever I had, I'd be drinking it. I'd be drinking in school. I'd be drinking outside of school. If I was in school, like, I'd usually be high or drunk or whatever, and just skip all my lessons and just like do nothing.
Wow. Where did you get the money from?
I didn't have any money. I remember whoever I was living with at that point, because there was times when I was homeless, the first people I lived with for like 4 weeks. There was one family I lived with for about a week, and another family I stayed with for like a weekend, and they kind of got like a little bit of money for me when I stayed with them for a week, and they kind of gave me the money to like go and get my fags, because obviously I wasn't their child, so they can't be like, you need to quit smoking. Like, they couldn't really say anything, so I'd buy like a cheap packet of cigarettes and then buy whatever else with.
How did you eat?
I got free school meals, because obviously I was under like social services and all of that. My friend, I remember there was a girl at school called Lauren. She's so lovely. She was in a year below me, and her family had been really supportive of everything that's going on, and her dad used to make me like a packed lunch every single day. So like that was really, really lovely. He used to make like these little wraps, and then like give me a chocolate bar and like a little and stuff. It was well nice.
Lovely. Did you have a lot of friends in school at that time?
I think I had a lot of friends because of how chaotic I was. Everyone kind of like, I was like constantly like swearing at teachers and telling them to like, I was just a naughty kid. And when you're a naughty kid at school, like everyone's drawn to you, like, oh, what are they gonna do next? Like, I think you just become like the class clown, really.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a smoker at school, everyone just kind of knows you because they just talk about you. Because they're behind the mask box and stuff like that. Oh,
And talking to you now, I mean, I can clearly see, and everyone watching can clearly see, you're absolutely delightful. You're just lovely. Did you know that at that time that truly you were a lovely person? You were a nice person. This wasn't you. This was all fake.
I knew it. I knew it from. I think you have different like personas when you're with different people, and when I was with like my actual friends that I knew were my real friends, they saw a different side of me, and they saw like the sensitive me, and I'm not going to be big-headed at all, but I was funny. I was, a young kid, and like especially when we used to drink and get high, it was just fun. Like it's just what kids do. And but everyone else, I guess, saw a different side of me. But I definitely knew I was always like, before I became homeless, I used to post like anti-bullying videos, and used to like I remember like an English lesson, we had to write a speech and like present a speech on whatever topic we wanted, and mine was like anti-bullying, and I was constantly like trying to be creative, and like I don't know, I think people saw that side of me before I became homeless, and when I became homeless, it was just kind of like, I don't care now, like no one cares about me, so why should I care about anything?
Were
So
you frustrated that that was the person you'd become?
not at the time, if I'm completely honest. I kind of, in my mind, I hated the situation I was in. But back then I was like, I've got so many friends now. Like, I actually, like, people want to spend time with me. But obviously, looking back, those weren't my real friends. They were just leading me down a path that I shouldn't have been going down. And they were a bad influence. But obviously, in those times, you're like, yeah, it's so cool. And
So you were happy at that time?
I, I was really, really depressed, but I was just masking it. Because if I focused on how crappy I felt, I would have kept trying to like commit suicide or keep self-harming, and I just didn't. I was trying to not be that person. So it's really, really hard to explain.
So if the drugs stopped, if the alcohol stopped, if everything that you used to mask the pain up stopped, the pain would have shown itself.
Yeah, and then I would have been that friend that no one wanted to hang around with, because I was constantly upset. I just wanted everyone knew me as like a class clown, and that's what I need. I felt like I needed to be that person all the time, when in reality I didn't.
When you were homeless and you went into school, how did you shower?
I used to. There was like the PE blocks at school before I'd. Towards the end of becoming towards the end of being homeless, they used to get a lift to school, because I got put into a hostel for a couple of weeks. So they used to pick me up from there, and then I'd either have a shower at the hostel, or like they'd say like, oh, we'll clear out the PE block and you can just go and have a shower in like the PE block when like while no one's there. And then like the school washed my clothes and stuff like that. So it was
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. And did you complete your GCSEs?
I did my GCSEs, but I like fell asleep in all of them. So I got D's, which is, I think, all right for saying I missed half of the year.
What were your results, sorry?
I got D's.
D's.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I missed half of the year. So I think I did all right.
Considering the circumstances. Tell me about the point then that you said, enough of this lifestyle, I need to turn this around. What was the period up to that point like?
So Christmas Eve 2014, I was in hospital for about, I think before that, I was in hospital for about 4 days, and I got taken into foster care on Christmas Eve 2014. I was in care for about 9 months, and to be honest, things started to get a lot better in
So
this home.
were you with a foster family?
Yeah, and they were so great. My foster carer Sonia was just amazing. She was literally like I was so confused in my head. I remember literally like the week I moved in, after about 6 or 7 days, I remember jumping out of my bedroom window. I almost knocked myself out on her car, because like it was on the driveway and my like room was on the front. And I remember just getting into a taxi and just like going as far as I could, and I didn't get very far, and then I ended up walking back like in the pouring rain and knocked on the door, and she was like, I thought you were in bed. I was like, I ran away, but I ran
Why
out.
did you run away?
I couldn't, it was weird, like at 16 years old to live with a family that isn't your family. And like obviously I still went to the same school, so I kept seeing my siblings, my sisters at school, when I'm like, and they're going home to their mom and I'm going home with a different person. It was weird to me.
Weird in the way that, did you feel like a burden?
I felt I always felt like the black sheep, and then from then it just kind of confirmed it for me. I was like, I'm always going to be the left out one. I'm always going to be the one that's a bit strange and weird and etc. etc. So I don't know. It just didn't feel right at the time. But my parents like used to sit up with me until like 3 a.m., like 3, 4 a.m. just talking about everything and constantly going over the same rubbish. And she wouldn't get tired of it. And it was like she would constantly hug me and like kiss me and tell me that she loves me and say like you're part of this family, like we love you. And I was so confused, like why is this adult who doesn't even know me like trying to like tell me that I'm part of the family. Same year, I got rid of like the group I hung around with, and in September I enrolled onto a level 2 course at college for health and social care because I wanted to be a social worker or like a teacher, a tutor or something. And I did 3 induction days, and I told my foster. I was stopping at a friend's house, but I wasn't. I just stopped going to college. I just kind of gone off the rails because I found out that a family friend had died, and my great uncle had died, and I didn't really know how to deal with death at that time. And I went off the rails. I left care at this point. I got into a relationship with a guy who was 10 years older than me, so I was 17 and he was 27. It was a really toxic relationship. He was an alcoholic, so I was drinking like a litre bottle of vodka every day. I was cocaine, weed, anything I could get. I did heroin. It was so bad. The next 11 months of my life was so chaotic, and it felt like a lifetime. And it was the worst time in my entire life because it was just, I had a miscarriage in that time as well, which broke me. We ended up splitting up, and I just didn't know how to. It was like the first person that really gave me attention and loved me, and I loved them. It was like they left, and it constantly felt like every time something's going good, it has to go bad. Like I just didn't deal with it, and I was getting really, really skinny. My foster care, I still went and see my foster carers like once every 2 weeks or once every month. But they were like, you know, you've got to start thinking about your future. You're going to be 18 this year, and I enrolled onto a course called Juniper, which is just to get like your English and maths. It was just like a little training course, and I only did it for the money. So I was getting an extra £40 a week, and I was thinking, oh, I can buy some more booze. Like I can just get weed or just get high. Actually going into it, I did start thinking like I can do it. Like I can do it. But then obviously I was getting dragged into the wrong crowd. And there was a point in August where I ran off to Loughborough. And I had an old friend up there, and I was like, I just want to run away from Burton. I hate it. Like I just want to get away from everything. And I ran off up there, and then my social worker ended up finding me anyway. So she brought me back, and I was living in a semi-independent flat at this point anyway, because they obviously couldn't leave me without anywhere to live, because I was obviously like a child of the government, really. And my foster carers, I went around my foster carers the day after, and they were like doing up my old room, like taking the wallpaper off, and they were like, do you want to come and help? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, I wish like I never left, like all of that stuff. And I remember I'm getting all emotional now, but I remember my foster carer turning around and she was like, well, it's your room again if you want it. And I was like, yeah, of course I want it. Like, are you crazy? Like I just got to the point where it was like I just got exhausted of living the way I did, and I just wanted to not be a disappointment to people or myself, because I constantly heard that I'd never be anything, and I just thought like there's so much more to life than what I'm doing right now. So yeah.
Asia then left her old lifestyle behind. She moved back in with her foster carers, got a part-time job at a local pub, And
How
then
was your
she
mental
enrolled
health
on a
at this
course
time?
with the Prince's Trust.
Pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie, but the Prince just really helped with my mental health.
In what ways? What did they do?
It saved my life. Like if I didn't do that course, I don't think I'd be here today. There was a team leader on there called Abby Heath, and she lived she lives around the corner. She's literally like my mom, and this is like 4 years later. I'm like, her family is like my family. Her daughters call me like big sis, and like it's just, I don't know. She literally saved my life. She was always there, like day or night, and she was just constantly telling me like, you can do this. Like, I see something in you. Like, she told me, like she still tells me now, but she's like, the first day I met you, I just knew you were made for more than this little town. Like, you are going to achieve so much. And I didn't believe her at the time, but obviously, like now I'm kind of like, okay, you were
right. And are you an ambassador for the Prince's Trust?
Yeah, I am now.
So what does that mean? What does that entail?
So, I became a young ambassador in 2018, and they give you like different events. You share your story to different like donors of the trust, or they have like gala dinners sometimes, or they have loads of different events, and there's so many like different opportunities you can gain from doing the events as well. But I feel like there's just a real strength in actually putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, because people see you and just think like wow, like these young people have literally had their lives changed by the trust, and that's why people want to put more into the trust, which is amazing, because I'm such a big advocate for them.
Does the trust feel like yet another family that you craved when you were younger?
Yeah, for sure. Because obviously there's loads of young ambassadors, and like I've met so many different people, and there's like definitely them couple. There's like I met this guy called Gideon doing an Invest in Futures event, which is there was like Philip Schofield there, and he put me on his Snapchat, which was so cool. And then there was Prince Charles came, there was Fern Cotton, all of the other the trust executives and whoever works there. They're so passionate about it. Like, if you work for the trust, you're not just like, oh, I work for the trust. You're like, I work for the trust. Like, it changes lives.
And tell me about as well, and I have to read this because there's no way I was going to remember this, but it was March this year, the 11th of March, and you took part in a ceremony at the Princess Trust Awards, and you won the Watches of Switzerland Group Young Ambassador Award. What is that? What does that mean?
It's just crazy. So mine was judged by a group of people and the Watches of Switzerland, and then so they had all of us put in front of them, and then I guess they chose me, and it's just crazy to even be given that sort of platform. It's just mental. I never even dreamed of it. It was crazy.
Congratulations, that's amazing. It really is. So tell me about your life today. What's your lifestyle like? Your job? Are you working? Where do you live?
Boring. Like I am so like back at like thinking about how I was back then. I was just so crazy and like adventurous, and now it's like I go to work every week, every day of the week, Monday to Friday. I come home on Friday. On the weekend, I'm literally chilling with my cat. I go for walks. I live in like a little village, and it's really nice. All the neighbours are nice. I'm living the dream. I'm living such a quiet, chilled life with the little group that I surround myself with that I love. And yeah, I couldn't be happier. It's amazing.
And what's your relationship like with your family, with your mum and dad?
I don't speak to them. I realised I kept trying to make it work. I kept trying to be the bigger person, but I realised there's no point allowing yourself to have so much negativity in your life, and you will not escape it until you cut it off. So I did it, and I literally never looked back since, because I'm so happy, like so happy. I'm not going to say like the odd times where obviously I'm still in therapy. I still have bad days, but you know, like I've worked through a lot of my trauma, which is great for me.
Yeah. And how do you stay on top of your mental health now?
Always make time for yourself. Like, and obviously, especially when you're working in full-time work, you can get sucked into that and constantly be overthinking about work, and just be like get too involved in other people's lives and don't want to focus on yourself. But you've just got to think like you've got to have me time, even just like a nice hot bath or reading, or just making dinner instead of getting a takeaway, or something. It's just, you've just got to think about you. And I think when you get older, you realize that the people that you surround yourself with are going to have the same opinion too, and that's why you just have a little circle, and you only sort of hang out with the people that you really vibe with and get you, and you just understand when you're older, I guess.
And do you love yourself now?
Do you know what? I used to hate looking in the mirror, but you know what? When I've got my makeup on, I look nice, and I constantly say to myself and my friends, like, you should love the way you look. And like on all of my mirrors, if you go around the house, there's like, you are beautiful, like, be positive today. I'm such a big advocate for self-love, because how can you love someone else unless you like love yourself? You've got to be kind to yourself, because you're living in your body, and you've got to appreciate yourself.
Mm-hmm. And your personality as well, because it can go on beyond looks as well. Do you love your personality? Do you love things about you? Do you like your humor, your kindness?
I hate the fact sometimes I'm so over kind. Like, I could literally, if someone was like burgling a house, I'd be like, do you want me to help you with that? Like, if I saw, I'm joking, I wouldn't actually do that, but like, at work, especially because I work in logistics, and there's a lot of men in our industry, and obviously women are trying to pave their way. We're trying to get the 50-50%, like, women, men, and a lot of people are like, oh, you can't do that, they don't do that for you. And I'm like, well, then make the step, like, you do it first. And it's like our managing director of our company for the UK, Ireland and Nordics, he's so supportive of my journey. I'm starting a new business soon, so he wants to incorporate that. He wants me to get taught.
What's your new business?
So it's called Asia. So it's going to be an acronym for Achieve, Inspire, Succeed, Always. And it's going to be a motivational speaking booking tool for schools, colleges, workplaces. So you can kind of book me to come and speak at your whatever location about anything that you want me to talk about. So a lot of it is about mental health when you go into the workplaces. And I think more for workplaces is, if you see kind of like some of your staff, their work declining, don't automatically think that they're being lazy. Like, ask them, what's going on? Like, how's everything at home? How's everything at work? Is there anything we can do in order to help you, instead of being like, do this, do that, you need to change, you need to fix up, if you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah. And what would you say is the biggest lesson you've ever learned in your life?
God, I've never actually been asked that question. Biggest lesson I've learned in my life, probably I know it's kind of often your gut feeling, like, if as well, because I got offered to do it just before I actually did it, and in my gut I was like, do not do it. And I feel like if I did it then, I wouldn't have been ready. And whereas when I actually did it at the time, that was the time I knew it was ready, and it could have been a completely different outcome if I started it back then. So I feel like gut is always right. It's always right.